The controversial ending to Saturday's Indiana Fever versus New York Liberty matchup has the basketball world in an uproar, and rightfully so.
So the Indiana Fever went down in a hard-fought 90-88 point loss to the New York Liberty.
With just 2.9 seconds remaining in a tied game, Sabrina Ionescu drove to the basket and was awarded a highly questionable foul call against Lexie Hull, despite clearly initiating the contact herself. Replays showed Hull had established legal guarding position, yet officials sent Ionescu to the line for 2 free throws that ultimately decided the game. This egregious call was just the beginning of the officiating travesty that would unfold in those final moments at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. After Ionescu sank both free throws to give the Liberty a 90-88 lead, the Fever had one final chance to tie or win. Everyone knew where the ball was going, to Caitlin Clark, Indiana's superstar. When Clark received the inbound pass and began her move toward a potential game-winning shot, Liberty guard Natasha Cloud clearly made illegal contact, sticking her arm through Clark's body before dislodging the ball. By any reasonable interpretation of the rules, this was a clear foul. Yet inexplicably, the officials swallowed their whistles, allowing the Liberty to escape with a victory they didn't deserve, and robbing Clark and the Fever of a fair opportunity to win the game. This blatant officiating double standard, calling a questionable foul for Ionescu while ignoring obvious contact against Clark seconds later, wasn't just a minor footnote to the game. It was the defining moment that transformed what should have been a showcase of the WNBA's brightest stars into a glaring example of how biased officiating can tarnish an otherwise spectacular contest. The final score read 90-88 in favor of the Liberty, but that simple scoreline fails to tell the complete story of how victory was snatched from Caitlin Clark and the Fever in the most controversial of circumstances. The afternoon began with tremendous anticipation as the 2-1 Fever welcomed the undefeated Liberty to Indianapolis. This wasn't just any regular season matchup. It was a clash between the face of the WNBA's future in Caitlin Clark and the reigning champions led by their own superstar, Sabrina Ionescu. The electricity in the arena was palpable from the opening tip, with fans eager to witness what promised to be an epic battle between 2 Eastern Conference powerhouses. The first quarter set the tone for what would be an offensive showcase, with both teams trading baskets at a blistering pace. New York edged Indiana 30-29 in the opening frame, with Jonquel Jones establishing her presence early for the Liberty. Clark, meanwhile, showed flashes of her brilliance with an old-fashioned three-point play and several pinpoint passes that demonstrated why she's revolutionizing the point guard position in women's basketball. The Liberty managed to create some separation in the second quarter, outscoring the Fever to take a 55-46 lead into halftime. At this point, it appeared New York might pull away for a comfortable victory, leaning on their championship experience and the formidable trio of Ionescu, Breanna Stewart, and Jones. Clark had gone quiet in the second quarter, and the Fever seemed to be searching for answers against the defending champions. But what happened in the third quarter was nothing short of magical, the kind of performance that has made Clark a household name across America. After Kelsey Mitchell sparked a Fever comeback with a steal and bucket followed by a game-tying 3, Clark took over in spectacular fashion. She gave Indiana the lead with a driving layup, extended it with an incredible 4-point play, and then delivered the highlight of the game, a 34-foot buzzer beater to end the quarter, the deepest shot made in the WNBA this season. That sequence transformed the game and electrified the Gainbridge Fieldhouse crowd. Clark's third quarter explosion wasn't just about the points. It was about the momentum and confidence it injected into the entire Fever team. Indiana outscored New York by 17 points in the third quarter, turning a 9-point deficit into an 8-point lead heading into the final frame. Clark's buzzer beater in particular was the kind of moment that defines careers and creates legends. The Fever continued to build on that momentum early in the fourth quarter, extending their lead to 12 points. At that moment, it appeared Indiana was on the verge of a signature victory against the league's defending champions. Aaliyah Boston was dominant inside, finishing with 27 points on an efficient 12 of 19 shooting and adding 13 rebounds. Her performance was a reminder of why she was the #1 overall pick in 2023 and why she formed such a formidable partnership with Clark. But this is where the narrative takes a troubling turn. As the fourth quarter progressed, the officiating began to shift noticeably in New York's favor. Calls that had been made consistently throughout the game suddenly disappeared when Liberty players made contact with Fever players. Meanwhile, the slightest contact from Indiana resulted in whistles. This inconsistency allowed New York to mount a 16-2 run that erased the Fever's hard-earned lead. A closer examination of the final possessions reveals just how egregiously the referees tilted the game in New York's favor. In the last 3 possessions alone, the officials missed or ignored at least 3 clear fouls that should have been called in Indiana's favor. First, Dana Bonner was absolutely destroyed on a play with no whistle from the officials. This was a clear missed call that would have given the Fever free throws and potentially sealed the game for Indiana. Then came the most controversial sequence involving Sabrina Ionescu. When examining the play frame by frame, it becomes clear that Ionescu committed not just one, but multiple fouls on the same possession. First, she initiated contact with Lexie Hull. Then, she committed a second foul as she continued to drive. But the most blatant violations came as she followed through. She clearly held Hull with her shoulder and made illegal contact on Hull's arm. That's at least 4 separate fouls on a single play. Yet somehow the whistle blew against Hull, sending Ionescu to the line for the game-deciding free throws. This wasn't just poor officiating. It was, as many fans and analysts have pointed out, tantamount to cheating. The evidence is plain as day in the video footage. While some might argue that Clark simply got locked up on the final possession, the reality is that she was being fouled throughout the entire sequence. Natasha Cloud made illegal contact with her arm, went through her body to get to the ball, and then held her as Clark attempted to gather for a shot. Any one of these actions should have resulted in a whistle, yet the officials remained silent. The corrupt officiating essentially handed the game to New York, and even with this extraordinary advantage, the Liberty barely escaped with a 2-point victory. This wasn't a case of the better team winning. It was a case of officials determining the outcome rather than the players on the court. Clark's reaction told the whole story. She immediately threw her arms up in disbelief and confronted the referee, reportedly saying, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Her frustration was entirely justified. This wasn't just a missed call, it was a failure of the officials to apply the rules consistently in a game-deciding moment. The contrast between the Ionescu call seconds earlier and the non-call on Clark couldn't have been more stark or more damaging to the game's integrity. Despite the controversial ending, Clark's performance was remarkable. She finished with 18 points, 10 assists, and 10 turnovers, a statistic line that reflects both her brilliance and the aggressive defense she faced from the Liberty. More impressively, she made history with the most 10-assist games ever by a player in their first 2 WNBA seasons, further cementing her status as one of the most impactful young players the league has ever seen. The turnovers, while concerning, must be viewed in context. Clark faces defensive pressure unlike any other player in the WNBA, with teams often sending multiple defenders her way and physical play that frequently goes uncalled. Despite this attention, she still manages to create scoring opportunities for herself and her teammates at an elite level. Her ability to overcome a 0-for-7 start from 3-point range to hit crucial shots in the third quarter speaks volumes about her mental toughness and resilience. Aaliyah Boston's dominant performance deserves special recognition as well. Her 27-point, 13-rebound showing against one of the league's best front courts demonstrated why she and Clark form such a potent duo. Boston's efficiency in the paint provided the perfect complement to Clark's perimeter play, and together they pushed the defending champions to the brink. The Liberty, for their part, relied heavily on their star power to escape with the win. Jonquel Jones led the way with 26 points and 12 rebounds, while Ionescu added 23 points, including those controversial game-winning free throws. Breanna Stewart contributed 16 points, though she was relatively quiet by her lofty standards. New York's experience as defending champions showed in how they weathered Indiana's third-quarter storm and executed down the stretch, with considerable help from the officials, of course. What makes this loss particularly frustrating for the Fever is how it continues a troubling pattern in the WNBA. Since Clark entered the league, there has been a noticeable inconsistency in how physical defenders are allowed to be with her compared to other stars. The league has benefited enormously from Clark's popularity and the attention she brings, yet seems unwilling to ensure she receives the same protection afforded to established stars like Ionescu and Stewart. This double standard was on full display in the game's final sequence. If the roles had been reversed, if Clark had initiated contact like Ionescu did to draw a foul, or if a Fever defender had made the same contact on Ionescu that Cloud made on Clark. Does anyone doubt the whistles would have blown immediately? The inconsistency isn't just frustrating, it's damaging to the league's credibility and the integrity of the competition. The aftermath of the game saw social media erupt with outrage from fans and analysts alike.
Just got the biggest help from the WNBA referees to beat Caitlin Clark and the Fever. Guys, for this
Video
one
clips
here,
of the final sequence spread rapidly, with many pointing out the clear contact that should have resulted in a foul call. Even neutral observers and fans of other teams acknowledged that the Fever had been robbed of a fair opportunity to win, or at least force overtime. In the end, the scoreboard will show a 90-88 victory for the New York Liberty. But anyone who watched the game knows the truth. Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever were robbed of a fair opportunity to win by officials who failed to apply the rules consistently. It's a bitter pill to swallow for a young team on the rise. But if history is any indication, Clark will use this injustice as motivation to come back even stronger. And next time, perhaps not even questionable officiating will be enough to deny her and the Fever the victory they deserve. The rivalry between these two teams, and particularly between Clark and Ionescu, is only just beginning. When they meet again later this season, the intensity will be even higher, the stakes even greater. And hopefully, the officiating will be fair and consistent, allowing the players to decide the outcome with their talent